We're going to depart from Proverbs for a little bit, as long as you so choose for this day. Betty Jo, good morning. And I want to talk about Christmas. Oh, how, timely, right? So I thought I'd take just a few minutes today, maybe the whole class, I don't know, and chat about Christmas. What a wonderful time of the year. I don't know about you, but I was blessed with... Oh, I didn't say hey to Jason. He was busy talking to somebody. Hey, Jason. Good morning. I don't know about you, but I had a mama who just made Christmas very, very special. And so now my children's mama makes Christmas very, very special. And so, they'll have great memories when they get old and have their own kids and grandkids. And I do love Christmas. I love all the tradition. I love connecting with all those past memories, and maybe you do too. And maybe you don't. I don't know. That's you. But I say all that to set up what I'm going to talk about today, because it may sound like I'm a bit of a Scrooge, and I'm not. I love Christmas. I love the Christmas tradition, and I can't overemphasize that, but it is, in fact, a tradition, And it's not anything that's biblically mandated by any stretch of the imagination. Matter of fact, quite the contrary. If you study the history of Christmas, as we have studied the history of Easter and other holidays that are celebrated, you find that culture has always infected these holidays in some way, shape, or form, and some of the ways aren't necessarily evil. We could study Halloween and do that, but not necessarily in Easter or Christmas. But there are some things that are truly non-biblical. They're non-Christian. They're just, matter of fact, they come from pagan sources, and they have blended into and morphed into what we know today as the holiday of Christmas, which I find very interesting too, because there seems to be a big battle cry about, we should say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays and this kind of thing, as if this was the Christian mandate to be able to say Merry Christmas, And don't get me wrong, I understand the anti-Christian bias that is no doubt a part of the Christmas chant, but we as Christians ought not to be able to, take as our mantra and that we have championed because we get to say Merry Christmas, because in fact that's, again, nothing founded in Scripture. Matter of fact, if you go back and you read some of the early Christian writers, such as Tertullian and some other historians, some of the makeup of the original, what's ultimately going to be Christmas, they really were severely critical of celebrating birth anniversaries, because this is what the pagans did. The pagans celebrated the birth anniversaries of their gods with a variety of different traditions and practices that had to do with, for instance, evergreens over their mantles and things like this, and they were extremely critical of that kind of practice. And so anyhow, I just kind of want to delve into that, and I'm not Scrooge. I'm not coming against it, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh man, we need to now take up the cause to stamp out... No. By the way, there were some who did that. Back in... I'm probably going to get the date right. I want to say 1761, 1861. I'll have to look up the date again. I've got it on my notes here somewhere. But there was a time in America where it was illegal to celebrate Christmas in Boston. And if you were caught celebrating Christmas, you were fined 5 shillings. Because as Christmas came from overseas to the United States, it was basically almost a type of Bacchus. It was drinking, and it was gluttony, and it was gambling, and it was all kinds of things. So it's different, it's kind of funny, but not in some ways, as the notorious office Christmas party and the escapades that have come as a result of those. So yeah, so you've got so much division in this Christmas. Can you imagine what would happen to the economy if all of a sudden, for some reason, someone decided no more Christmas? Somewhere is up to 25% of all consumer spending takes place during the Christmas season. Could you imagine what would happen? So, some retailers, they live for Christmas. If they have a bad Christmas season, they have a bad year. So, anyhow, there's just a ton of stuff I want to chat about Christmas. But realize this, there's nothing in the Bible, nothing, that talks about the celebration of Christ's birth. As I said, it's not until really, if you want some hard, fast Christmas celebration evidence, 366 AD, when Constantine, who converted, Roman emperor, became a Christian, and some would say allegedly. I'm not going to question his conversion. Let's just go for that. He's a Christian, and he made Christmas a law. That's what we're going to do. We're going to celebrate Christmas. And but before that, you have almost total silence on that with all the Christian writers. And when you then compare that with things like, for instance, the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, and we see that celebrated in the Lord's Supper, and the Easter celebration really started very early. The Easter tradition did very early in Christian history, and really had a good tie-in with the transition from the celebration of the Passover. So there is some real early evidence of what Easter is about, even though, again, Easter is not, again, in and of itself, and definitely not the way it's come down to us today, a Christian mandated celebration, even though I like to say we celebrate Easter every Sunday, So anyhow, there's a ton of stuff to chat about. I've got some of these Christmas facts I want to talk about, and what we'll do is we'll morph into some of the stuff that is taking place today. But I found these 31 facts that I want to share with you about Christmas, and I want to hear some of your thoughts too. Everything from Jesus' birth in the Nativity to Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, And let me just do a real quick quiz on some very basic stuff. I know it's a pop quiz. You didn't get to study, but real quick though, Jesus was born, and there was something that marked his birth, that navigated the three magi. Was it three? It was. How do you know? Somebody find the Bible verse where it says there were three. How many were there? Why do we say there were three? Because of the three gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But it just says magi, plural, came, but we don't know how many were with them. But we like to go with the tradition of three. Okay, so what navigated them there? The star, right? Okay, and so in what city was Jesus born? Bethlehem, right? The city of David. And in what facility was he born in? He was born in a manger, basically something to feed the, There was no room for him at the motel. So he was born in what? A stable. But in fact, all the earliest tradition has it was more of a grotto. which is simply Latin for basically a cave. Just some, a concave area where they would put the cattle and stuff out of the weather. So it's I know we like to think of a traditional, gambrel roof barn, with the cows all in the corrals and stuff, but it's basically just a stinky, knock in the side of a hill cave, dark, dank, and had a little trough there that they'd feed the cattle in. So, I know it spoils all of our, Saturday Evening Post pictures and stuff of what it would look like. But in reality, I think it's important that we see this is what it would have looked like in Christ's time. It was not a nice place. It was kind of nasty and very simple. Okay, so let me share a couple of things with you. First of all, Christmas. Okay, marks Jesus' what? His birth. On what day? Of course, December 25th. But of course, there's nowhere in the Scripture you're going to find that he was born on December 25th. And from the time he was born till now, scholars and others have debated what the date is. Well, December 25th is winter time. And so, there's all those who will begin to argue about the idea that, well, it couldn't have been December 25th because it had been wintertime. There wouldn't be, according to Luke, shepherds in the field, right, with their sheep. That's the time you corral the sheep. You're not out in the field and so on. That doesn't hold water. I had a dear friend of mine, Doug Johns. They went to Jerusalem December 25th, and they saw shepherds out with their sheep in the fields. So, anyhow, a lot of people like to argue for more of a springtime date or even a fall date, but not many people argue for it being actually a winter date. But people have argued about it for many, many times. So why December 25th? Well, now this is a debate in and of itself and how it has morphed, because there's all different kinds of answers for this. And you can study them ad nauseum for sure. But more than likely it coincided with an ancient pagan festival, and this ancient pagan festival is quite complicated, but it deals with a Roman festival, and it was called Saturnalia. And it has to do around winter solstice, which is December 21st, and worship of sun god, and it had a lot to do with partying and gift giving and just quite a raucous, And so the idea was that the early church was going to compete with the pagan festival. These are some very loose summarizations of a lot of stuff. But they would kind of compete with it, in this Christmas. Now, why are people all in such an uproar about folks that say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas? Have you been caught up in all that controversy? You see it all over Facebook. You have for a long time. I definitely say it would be a few years. And so what's the big yank on that? I see some Christians, their hair goes on fire if you say Happy Holiday, and their hair just goes on fire, like you just blasphemed them or something. What's the rub on that? What do you guys think? Help me, educate me. What's the big deal on that? Okay. Yeah. But what does Happy Holiday mean? Political correctness. What does it literally mean? Huh?
When I was growing up, it was a season. I always heard Happy Holidays.
Yeah. Exactly. And maybe some of us are a little older. It really doesn't bug me because Happy Holiday and Merry Christmas were synonymous in the 60s and the 70s. Because what does holiday actually mean? Yeah. 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 And I have no doubt about people's motives behind it. And there is, like I said to begin with, there's this backdrop of anti-Christian sentiment in wanting to switch it. But what I'm talking about is the Christian response, and why we don't have to have any fear about that. Someone saying Happy Holiday versus Merry Christmas, because the word holiday literally means holy day. So in a roundabout way, they're actually saying Merry Christmas to you, and in your celebration of your holy day. Yeah, that would work out well. And so I guess I'm just a little bit interested in our response, not their motives, because let's not kid ourselves. This is nothing new under the sun. That there are those who would come against Christianity. They've been doing it since the first century. What's more important than their attack on Christianity is our response to their attacks. How do we respond? And I don't think it's like a milestone because I can say Merry Christmas. I think a greater thing to say is, Jesus is Savior, or something to do with the gospel, okay? And because Christmas is basically a tradition. A good tradition. Don't get me wrong, I like it. I love it, But it is not the high watermark of us in our pronouncement as Christians to the world. But rather, Jesus Christ is Savior. That is the high watermark for us. But make no mistake, people are coming against us. But don't get all twisted out of shape. And it's almost like a bait for us. I see it. That's my main concern, because I do know what they're doing. It's a bait, and they're trying to get us into that. And are they trying to change things? Yeah, sure, they are. But don't get into a twist over it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm a church goer, but don't talk about God like he's real, so to say.
Yeah.
And then we'll get in a huff about, I'll say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, what I'm afraid of, and you're really narrowing into the thing that brings me greater concern, is that somehow I've been able to say Merry Christmas in the workplace, but I haven't shared the gospel. I haven't fulfilled the Great Commission. Wait a minute now. What is more important here? And so that's what concerns me, is to allow the world to dictate then our response is that, somehow we can champion Christmas when we need to really be champion the gospel. Hopefully that makes sense without in any way coming against a tradition that's near and dear to my heart too. But putting first things first, of first importance, and have no misunderstandings about some people's motives. They do want to see everything Christian annihilated, wiped out, expunged from every element of society. They always have been trying to do that. Good luck on that one. It ain't going to happen. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'd be the first one to defend. But let's be consistent. Let's be consistent across the board. And but I don't get the least bit twisted, because I'm like Randy. I mean, Happy Holidays was the same as Merry Christmas. I mean, we said them all both, and no one was offended. But I am aware, and of recent, there is a hidden agenda behind a lot of people to eradicate anything Christian through this process of when I grew up, you go down to the local town hall, they had a nativity scene, and more places that's being removed. In a lot of schools, you can't do a Christmas play anymore. I was subbing here in Tecumseh not that many years ago, and the teacher left me a assignment, and the assignment was to read the Christmas story. I mean, the Christmas story. I mean, Luke chapter 2, and the birth of Christ. I'm looking at that, and I got to tell you, my first impression was anxiety, because I thought, I'm going to get in trouble if I read this in a public school setting. And then very quickly on my feet, I thought, she gave me the assignment. She's going to get in trouble, not me. But isn't that weird that at my first thought was, somebody's going to get in trouble if they read this stuff in school, Oh, wow, that's like really terrible, right? To read about the birth of Christ, But that was my feeling. That was several years ago. How long has it been since I've been subbing? It's been at least 10 years, maybe longer. So it's nothing new. And we know the culture and where they're going. The darkness is the darkness, and they don't like the light. Okay? Yeah. You were going to say something, Kimmy?
I just think it's so sad that that's the case, and I agree that it is rampant and we're in a really liberal institution or, University of Michigan, and there it is terrible and it's scary. And I stand a part of a fellowship of people that cannot any form of religious practice. It's amazing how the people that are believers of the universe as a greater being or are, people are very comfortable hearing that. But when you speak of Christ, people get really itchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sad and scary that even us can go into the apps to read something and have a hesitation.
Yeah.
And I include myself in that sometimes too, and I'm ashamed of it, but, and then I go forward anyway, but I have to admit the hesitation's there because so much of this world is like that.
Yeah.
I will say this, it will say Merry Christmas. And I've noticed this year particularly, that's how cashier, my favorite place is incredible. Just a really, it really throws off the box. But I think it's important for us to see that we have freedom of speech. And even if that's just a small hollow victory, it's okay for me to say something that other people say I shouldn't say. It's not a small victory. It's not the end game. It's not the end game at all.
It's not being what?
It's not the end game.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like the world. But it's something we have to stand and say, and we're not going to take this from.
Yeah. But here's my thought too, also on that. I've never stopped saying it. Who's stopping anybody from saying Merry Christmas? Nobody. Now there may be those who, they say Happy Holidays to me, and you can almost tell the difference when they say it, And I just respond, well, Merry Christmas to you too, It's kind of like prayer in school. Who says you can't pray in school? Really? There's always been prayer in school. As long as there's tests in school, there will always be prayer in school. I mean, it's always going to be there. You can say what you want, but Chris, you teach your children, you raise them up, they pray in school. Nobody's going to stop me from praying. Nobody's going to stop me from saying Merry Christmas. Nobody's going to stop me from saying Jesus is the way, truth, and life. my main point on this is be careful. Don't fall into the stereotype. Don't fall into the baiting. Don't get your hair on fire. Just simply be a Christian, and be a Christian 365 days. And if Christ is a part of the Christmas tradition in your life, then say it. My other concern is the schizophrenic nature of Christmas. You know what I mean by that? No? Okay, it's simple. We just established Christmas is what? The birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, in a cave. Well, what about this round jelly old elf guy, that comes down chimneys? And are we got any kids in here? Oh, no. Is Haley okay with this? My grandson Tommy, he learned this year about Christmas. And he told his parents, "You mean you've been lying to me all these years? What else can I not believe about you guys, So you've got this schizophrenic nature here, And I remember when I was a new Christian. Vera remembers this conversation, poor thing. I talked to her probably all night about it. It's like, I'm not lying to my kids with this thing, I'm not doing this. And poor Vera, she went through the stress of me and my anti-Christmas time thing. We're not doing this pagan holiday anymore. And she's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this guy? Put him in a monastery or something. Anyhow, that's what I'm talking about. Now you've got this deal over here, and what do you do there? And you've got all different kinds of opinions and practices and traditions, and oh my goodness. And how did they come to be? And are these types of traditions necessarily sinful? I mean, is this whole Santa practice, are we lying to our kids? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Tommy gave all those. He goes, so I suppose you didn't bring them teeth for, you're the tooth fairy too, huh? Yeah, that was us too. Well, they do. They begin to say, well then, and he did. He said, well, what about God? Is he real too? It's like, yeah. All right, what am I supposed to believe? What am I not supposed to believe? Come on, what are you guys telling me? I'm supposed to trust you guys telling me the truth. It is a little sticky, isn't it? It can get a little sticky unless, you just need to tell them it's a story, it's fun and blah, blah, blah. But, there's some people take much more of a hard line, and it hasn't been that long ago in our in our history where, like I said, I found the dates here, by the way. I knew I'd find them here somewhere. 1659 to 1681. It was illegal to celebrate Christmas in Boston. You're fined 5 shillings if you're caught celebrating Christmas. Puritans were big upon not bringing that pagan holiday over to the United States. And so, for quite a few years, decades, it was frowned upon. But then there's some things that changed. And by the way, some storybooks, things like Dickinson's A Christmas Carol, made a huge difference in the change of acceptance to the Christmas holiday as we know it on the Santa Claus side, okay? And and again, all this came from Europe. And a couple of big countries that had big influence in Christmas as we know it today was the Netherlands, the Dutch, and Germany. 2 huge influences to this. And do you remember the guy in the Netherlands, what his name was? That evolved into what we know now as Santa Claus. Saint Nick, or in Dutch it was Sinterklaas. And this was based on a guy who was very philanthropic, very giving, and he'd go around giving these gifts. And there's just so many traditions. Like, why do you hang stockings over the fireplace? Huh? Who? Well, you're very close, but you didn't get the specifics because there was a specific event which this tradition began. And it was in a girls' orphans' home. And they would wash their stockings out, and they would hang them by the fire, and Santa Claus would come by, and he'd drop money in those stockings anonymously and secretively, and they get up in the morning, and there they were. Okay? Matter of fact, Vera does a little tradition on what day is it? Where you put stuff in their boots? But it's December 6th, you know, and going and putting these little gifts in their boots. Again, Santa Claus, who morphed into what we call Santa Claus. And, you know, things like the Christmas tree, and, you know, really, that goes way back and is very pagan in its origin. But anyhow, we have it now where it's just, why do you put up a tree? You know, there's some things you ask you. I ask myself, why do you put up a tree? Well, because we always have. It's tradition. It's kind of like, why do people wear a necktie? That's the one that no one has gotten an answer to me about. Why do men wear neckties? What a useless piece of clothing. You know, except to catch stuff as it falls out of your mouth instead of hitting your shirt, it hit your tie. You know, and I hate wearing ties. They choke my neck. And anyhow. But again, if James, if any of your kids come up and ask you, you know, what is this tree about? We got them all over here today, you know. Why are we putting up trees in December? What is that all about? What would you tell them? What's our tradition, right? I mean, that's probably the easiest way to get out. This guy like my grandson. No, I'm not going to get into him anymore. That boy, he's a character. But anyhow, what would you tell him? Or they smell good. You know, I tell you that I have such great memories of smelling that fresh pine tree in the house with great Christmas memories, right? But why would people cut down a tree and bring it into the house? And why those trees? Why not a maple tree? Why not, you know, an oak tree? Oaks take a lot longer to grow, for one thing. You know, okay, and so there was a time, by the way, there's this whole tradition of the Yule and the Yule log and burning it for 12 days and the 12 days of Christmas, right, and all that. You know this song? And it has to do with the 12 days of Christmas, December 25th to January 7th, or January 6th, excuse me. And you know, because not everybody celebrates Christmas on December 25th. The Orthodox Eastern churches, what day do they celebrate Christmas? I just gave it to you. January 6th. Why do they celebrate on the 6th and we celebrate on the 25th? Huh? We're more enlightened. They're liberals. That's why. They're always changing stuff. I brought something for you, just, you know, and I'm not going to get into it because I could spend 2 classes just on this, on why. I mean, there's all kinds of dates for Christmas going all the way back to the 4th century. Some January 6th, but the main ones are the 25th and January 6th. And the big difference is, do you realize there's 2 calendars? There's the Gregorian calendar and there's the Julian calendar. And so, really, January 6th on the Gregorian calendar is December 25th. So in some situations, it basically comes down to looking at 2 different kinds of calendars, okay? And so I got a list here of all the different major groups and which day that they celebrate Christmas on. For instance, the Armenian Church, January 6th, they use the Julian calendar, and on and on. Mainly the Eastern churches do the January 6th, which is the Epiphany, which is a whole nother study. I won't get into that. I want to stay on Christmas. Okay, another thing. Okay, so you know the old stockings things. Oh, why do you leave milk and cookies for Santa? See, that wasn't my tradition when I was a kid. I knew the other kids, they left milk and cookies. My dad said, no, Santa, he doesn't like milk and cookies. He likes Budweiser and cheese and crackers. So that's what he left, you know. And it's like, oh, okay. When I got older, it was different. Well, a couple of years it stayed the same. Then I became Christian. I was like, no, we're changing this. But anyhow, Dutch kids would leave food and drink for St. Nicholas on feast day. And carrots. Did you ever leave carrots, for the reindeer? Yeah. Yeah. We leave carrots for Santa Claus reindeer because in Norse mythology, people left hay and treats for Odin. And by the way, Odin and that whole study about him flying around and looking for souls and stuff. And the whole Yule-log thing, very interesting. But anyhow, Odin played a part in this, and his 8-legged horse, Sleipnir, in hopes the god would stop by their home during his Yule hunting adventures. Dutch children adopted this tradition too, and would treat and treats for Saint Nick's horse as well. Okay, so if you see these pictures of Saint Nicholas or Sinterklaas back in the Netherlands, and he was this really slender guy with a long beard and kind of a sad look on his face. But then we end up with this very rotund, bearded, red-suited guy. He never showed up till Coca-Cola in 1930. You know that? This is where our traditional... Uh-oh, somebody's walking in. I better change my tenor. So let's go to the song Silent Night. You guys all know how that song came about, right? Huh? Somebody did write it. But it was written because of a need. And this song was written basically in one evening. And the tradition has it that they were going, to have a Christmas Eve service, and some mice, and this is all speculated, had messed up the bellows of the organ. And so this guy wrote this song to be able to be played with a guitar, a very simple song, and hence Silent Night was written, just that night. And by the way, Silent Night is the most recorded Christmas song in history with over 733 different versions. What do you think is the best-selling Christmas song ever? Best-selling, as opposed to the most recorded. Huh? I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Best-selling of all time. Okay? The original lyrics to Hark the Herald Angels Sing were, Hark, how the welkin rings. And welkin was an English term for heaven, and a preacher had tweaked that later on. Jingle Bells was originally to be a Thanksgiving song. Originally. Boston church leaders tried to have the song I Saw Mama Kissing Santa Claus banned in the 50s because they thought it promoted physical intimacy. And singer Jimmy Boyd had to fly to Boston and explain to them why it wasn't obscene. 1950s was a different time. What do you think is the most popular Christmas song today, right now? December 24th, 2017, most popular Christmas song. Said what? Nope. 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 I'll give you a clue. Mariah Carey sings it. All I want for Christmas is you. Most popular Christmas song today. All righty. What do you think is the highest grossing Christmas movie of all time? No. Nope. Nope. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What'd you say? Which version? The Jim Carrey one version. Who knew? Highest grossing Christmas film ever. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Jim Carrey version. There you have it. Little statistics on Christmas. Thank you very much. Don't call me the Grinch now, or Scrooge, or anything like that, okay?